Welcome to episode 5 of Rational Discourse Weekly. It's Monday, November 12th, 2012. I'm William Garrison, and this is Michael Aune.
Hello.
Today we discuss religion in light of the recent election.
We also discuss why giving up religion shouldn't mean, giving up the search for knowledge and purpose. And we also touch on why blind faith is potentially very dangerous.
So stay tuned.
I think we should go with the obvious topical thing, which is everyone freaking the hell out about the fact that although it was God's will that Romney be elected, it was now the defeat of God's will that he was not elected, which confuses me, because a week ago...
Well, it's what you've explained to me before when people use God as a convenience to explain things positive.
He's explanatorily convenient.
Or in the case of Republicans hoping that Romney would win the election, it was a positive way for them to say, hey, God is working for us. It's like a driving force for hope for them, rather than to say, like, oh, his politics and his public speaking and his stance on these things is what will win him election. Somehow it's...
But, I mean, you had people who were... First of all, it reminds me of the joke that's going out there. It's saying, Obama is not the brown-skinned, socialist who gives out free health care. You're thinking of Jesus.
Yeah.
So there's this sort of, blindness to the fact that the very thing that they hate is supposed to be fundamental to the belief system they proclaim to adhere to.
Which reminds me of another segue, real quick.
No segues allowed, Billy.
I saw this on Reddit. Evidently, if Jesus existed, he probably would have had short hair, because it was very uncommon for Jews during that time.
He would have been a stocky, Hebrew-looking dude. He would not have been this fair-skinned, blue-eyed, long-haired, effeminate man in a robe.
So one of the things we wanted to talk about is the explanatory role of religion and how that drive for... I don't know if you put it purpose or meaning.
I mean, it covers a huge variety of topics. Personal meaning, fundamental meaning to, ground basic morality. Truth in some more abstract conceptions is grounded in God fundamentally. So it can be used to explain literally everything and has been at some point. Some of them are pantheistic, where God is literally the universe and the universe is God. Leibniz subscribed to something potentially like that. And so, literally, this was God's essence. And so he was quite literally an explanation for reality. And in many ways, people still ground that as either the first cause of the universe or why we're here, humanity as a species, or...
Why your car breaks down. You'd be like...
Because Jesus said you need to walk more.
Yeah.
Your calves are looking a bit cankly.
I haven't donated enough to the church this month or whatever.
According to many preachers, that's probably true.
Yeah.
Which totally falls into another topic of the exploitation of the explanatory power of God. Why is Hurricane Sandy bearing down on the East Coast? It's because of all the liberals and the gays. Which someone pointed out, then why does nothing bad happen to San Diego ever? Or San Francisco. They're fine, and they're the liberal gay bastions of America.
And it's because that has nothing to do with causality of...
Yes, that is not how causality works.
Yeah.
I hate to break it to some of you out there, but that's just not how it goes.
Yeah. It has something to do with, weather and changing temperatures and...
There's a better explanation.
Winds and...
It's trickier. It's not easy. You can't sum it up in a sentence.
But we know why these things happen, so...
And the thing is, even though we don't know why all things happen, which we never will, in theory, probably know why all things happen.
Yeah.
We might be able to find fundamental, physical equations that can map out the way things should happen and whatnot. It doesn't mean you can actually explain away the universe or all of the things that go on within it, which is fine with me. I'm okay with that. I don't need an answer to everything.
They tried to do that in the Minority Report, and Tom Cruise almost died, so...
Yeah, well, that's That would have been a good thing, though. I mean, not in real life, just in the movie. I don't want him to die in real life. I'm not advocating for the death of Tom Cruise.
He's
I
a
don't
legend.
want to get sued. We're gonna have to put John Doe for all of the credits in this episode now. Don't mention the S word, Billy. Don't mention the S word.
Science
is awesome.
Yes. Not the other S word you thought I was about to say.
That's good. Don't want to tempt fate. Which apparently, fate, going back, man. Apparently God wanted Obama. How cool is that? There are a lot of people seriously upset about this.
I mean, it works for me. The thing I think most people lose sight of is just...
It's a commie. Just putting it out there.
This is how politics and presidential elections work. We hire a Republican, we hire a Democrat. It goes back and forth. Presidents, we have good presidents, we have bad presidents, we have mediocre presidents, and
apparently this one wasn't bad enough.
It's the beauty of democracy, where we don't have where every president we have isn't a dictator that kills all the citizens, and
so he's no Joseph Stalin.
Yeah.
You're saying we've not had a Stalin-esque president yet?
Not in this country.
Except for McKinley. That guy tried. He wanted it so badly.
Got a fly on me.
Got a fly in your eye?
Yeah.
Are you going to die from the fly in your eye?
No, I'm good.
That's good.
I've got these eye guards.
Is that why you wear them?
Yeah.
Eye guard.
I've got 20/15 vision. I just have sensitive eyes, so I need to protect them from the winds and bugs. And
he does a lot of extreme stuff, so he's got to have his eyewear handy at all times. It's cool. But no, I think there's something fundamentally wrong with people being so blind to their own belief systems that they can say some of the absurd stuff that has popped up on the web lately.
Well,
just talking
about the election, it's we hear all the time about people praying that their sports team is going to win. Obviously, Michael and I don't believe that there's a God. But if there was, and if he had a personal investment in our lives,
it'd be in the Falcons and Florida State.
He wouldn't give two shits about who the president of the United States of America, one country in this giant world. He wouldn't care what sports team won a specific game.
No, phrase it the other way. It's one country on an infinitesimally small planet in an unbelievably large universe.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a hubris attached to a type of thinking that says that you matter so much in your personal endeavors that you are the center of God's universe at that moment, that he will stop the way the world works to answer your prayer. I think it shows what people are really reaching for is not... They're not looking for the philosophical concept of God. They're not looking for, something even with a set of consistent beliefs. They just want that momentary comfort, which I think is why everyone before the election was like, praise Jesus, we're gonna get our government back from the liberal socialists who are destroying the moral fabric of America, and we're gonna take this country back to God. And then things fail, and suddenly it's, oh no, we'll just have to hunker down and pray and hope the end times come swiftly. I mean, people are looking forward to the end of the world. I cannot even fathom why you would ever want that. Even if eternal paradise might be in your future, but that so many are not going to be there.
And say hypothetically that eternal paradise was true. How would that make you want this life to be any shorter? What is better, infinity...
Or to end it for other people.
Infinity plus 26 or infinity plus 80?
I mean, think about the fact that...
I'm just saying.
Okay, so let's say the Mormons are right. And Mormons get, first pick.
Is that how it works?
From what I understand, there's basically 3 tiers of paradise. Now, Mormons are actually cooler than some insofar as everyone has a chance to be saved. And then those who at the final rejection still refuse... Basically, they're not put in hell. They're just put aside. Okay, you have your own place away from God. And then
on planet Kolob,
if you were a good Mormon, you basically get a certain Kolob is, as from what it's the star that's nearest to the planet where God lives.
Okay,
I could be wrong on that. because I don't know. It's hard to keep up with the crazy. There's a lot going on there.
Yeah.
Anyway, Mormonism is actually quite tame when it comes to hellfire and eternal damnation.
As to how they process.
Let's go back to sinners in the hands of an angry God, that type God, where it's regardless of what you do, think, or say, you are damned before you ever born, because predestination, and you just better hope that you are in fact saved, and that God will pluck you out of hellfire and take you up to heaven. And it's like, okay, if you know the end of the world means that everyone who is left alive, 7.1 billion people, if you truly believe that only your faith is right, that means that it's in the millions who are going to be saved, meaning the vast majority of people on earth are going to suffer eternal torment. People who have never done any wrong to another human in their life, along with people who are terrible. People who have never harmed you or wronged you. People who are 6 days old, going to burn eternally, and you're like wishing for this. My moral compass just goes haywire.
Yeah, we don't see that as moral. I mean, I think most people blow it off as the will of God. Like, if God wills it,
but
they're saying I don't have the right to question it. But that's what we disagree with.
It's an easy way to stop an argument, because I know, as the person on the other side, there's no point talking to you about it anymore. And it means that you have basically abdicated any responsibility for anything that you just said or have done, because it's just God's will, and you get to walk away from the argument. It's just, you're not trying to engage at all.
Yeah.
And I think that's a fundamental promise. As someone who can't simply say I have absolute truth, here it is, read it, and weep, I have to justify pretty much anything that comes out of my mouth, anything that I want to put out there positively. Someone can challenge me and say, well, what about X, Y, and Z? And I have to, if I'm going to be, I think, intellectually honest, respond to those questions, respond to those concerns or those criticisms. Yeah. At the end of the day, I might very well be wrong. It's happened like 3 times already in my life.
Yeah. And speaking of being wrong, the ability to admit that you're wrong and learn from an experience like that isn't exclusive to atheists. It's not a weakness. And we meet religious people all the time that are willing to admit they're wrong. And but as an atheist, we feel it's important because we don't have all the answers, especially when it comes to life and science and the origin of the universe. And when we talk about things like purpose and meaning, whether or not we as people on this planet have an overarching purpose, or if we're literally here just to live and then die, and carbon being reused. I
firmly believe that I am here for no reason.
I believe that as well.
And so
because there's no evidence otherwise, I guess.
If you get my own reasons to get out of bed in the morning and go to work and pay my bills and justify my own existence to myself and others around me.
I think everyone, religious and non-religious alike, would agree that the brain is a very complex organ, and it gives us all kinds of crazy emotions.
Thoughts.
Love, fear, hate, nervousness, sympathy.
It's a myriad of crap going on in that small little gray gooey thing that sits in your skull.
So I think it's our brain that, it's those
is it the brain that gives you thoughts, Billy?
It's those processes that give us purpose. It's what gives us passions. Almost everyone has hobbies. It's whatever drives us to a particular hobby, whether it be beer or Magic the Gathering or skateboarding or
this podcast,
hunting innocent animals. Maybe that's your gig, and that's what you live for.
Hitting people in grocery stores with your shopping cart.
To be honest,
that's my thing. I think just right in the ankles.
I think that self-driven purpose is far more interesting and more empowering than purpose that is defined when you're born or before you're born and can't be changed. And talking about, your purpose is to praise the one and only God as defined by your holy book and to spread the word of God and try to convert as many people as you can before the rapture. And that's not the kind of purpose I choose to live. I'd rather be in charge of my own life, my own purpose.
Well, in a sense, you're forced to take ownership of yourself and your life. You can't just fall back on something like God's plan or the divine will, or, I mean, you can't even, in a sense, just become a missionary and like go off into the world on the church's dime. I mean, you really do have to, in a sense, ground yourself in a community based on the tenets of that community, of you personally. You have to justify your own existence because no one else is going to do it for you.
Well, and you mentioned community. I think that's important. I don't know if we've touched on it before, but that's one of my theories as to why a lot of people cling on to religion, even if they're on the fence, if they're agnostic, or if they're not sure, if they haven't actually sat down and thought about their beliefs. And I say this because I was there at one point. I think the reason people cling on to religion is because you may have a church that you visit, that you've got friends, you're constantly seeing the family members that you love and you love to be around, and maybe, your church is always providing great food and cool activities, soccer, baseball, whatever. But that's a love for community. It's not like you're, now you may enjoy singing gospels and talking about Jesus, but I think most people cling on to it. I think most people cling on to it for the human connection, not for the connection with the unknown, supernatural.
But there is something spiritual about a group interaction like that when you're all sharing in something. I get that. I've been at rock concerts where you get that sort of just intense feeling of belonging and connectedness to everyone, right? As for something as simple as music.
I mean, maybe you're with a group and you're sharing Kool-Aid, magical Kool-Aid that.
I hear that
delicious.
Those groups don't last very long, though. They have a high rate of attrition in their membership.
That particular one, yeah.
It's sad, but
so I know you wanted to talk about why religion, in the public sphere, should be on the chopping block. Why it should be discussed. Why it should be debated. Why we should, be having conversations like we do.
It's simple. Religious beliefs for truly religious people are foundational and will drive the decisions and actions that they make. Therefore, since they intrude on the public sphere based on the actions that they produce, it's fair game, in my opinion, to trace back, the causal chain there and say, wait a minute, let's take a look at exactly why you believe X, Y, and Z, why that's influenced your decision. And, maybe critically analyze some of this, because if your actions are potentially detrimental, especially to society at large or the public sphere, I think that's got to be fair game. I think that has to be okay to at least question it.
Yeah.
And I find it interesting that if someone wants to question my beliefs, I want to jump at the chance, in a sense, to have that conversation. Because it's almost like mental exercise. I've been training, in a sense, finding my worldview, justifying it, building it. And so when someone comes at me, it's like a chance to truly see if my beliefs are good. Are they actually worth holding? Because if they can stand up to a solid challenge, that means I'm probably closer to the truth than from it.
Well, and that's the good thing about a challenge is if you, quote unquote, don't meet that challenge, that's room for improvement. That's areas for you to study. That's arguments for you to look at. If someone comes up with a valid argument of why they believe a God has to exist based on some sort of evidence that they're proposing, then obviously you go back to the drawing board and do your research.
Well, and so to like in the debate here that happened, people were very, very wary of questioning Romney's Mormonism.
Yeah,
which to me should have absolutely been fair game, because although if any religious person had done it, it'd kind of be like the pot calling the kettle black, in my opinion.
Yeah.
At some point, even there are religious beliefs that are far more, out there than even the mainstream religious beliefs, or the people who are just sort of religious and the people who are just kind of spiritual. There's definitely a gradient of wackiness or absurdity that you can touch on. And when you get to the guy pulling seeing stones out of a hat after being convicted of fraud, that to me is like, there's just so many red flags going up about, whoa, wait a minute. As a person who's going to be in charge of my country potentially, you believe that story. If I was to take Joseph Smith's name out of it and tell you that story in a way that didn't immediately let you know I was trying to make an analogy to Mormonism, I guarantee you that person would call that batshit crazy.
Well, we discussed, I think, in the last podcast, up until Romney was actively being the Republican candidate.
72, I think?
People... 72?
Oh, sorry, I'm on a different issue. We'll touch back.
Most Christians didn't consider Mormonism to be a member of that Christian family.
Which hates each other.
Yeah.
Which I guess really does make
Catholics
it like family.
Catholics and Protestants, like that essentially makes up the...
Billy, they've always gotten along.
What's the individual members, have gotten along, which I think is the important thing. But
recently,
we're not against the religious. We're against religion. I think is an important distinction.
I've said in an essay, it's not that I don't believe in you, humanity. I just don't believe in your beliefs. Yeah. A lot of what you believe, I think, is wrong and fundamentally flawed and potentially dangerous. And if you can't even engage in a conversation to try and justify that belief, defend it.
Yeah.
And that, I think, goes back to the whole thing. I think there was an unwillingness to question the Mormonism question, because at some point you've got to figure out that those questions equally apply to you as a religious person. And that's, it's in a sense just avoiding the problem because you're afraid of the backlash. I don't want to ask you about this weird belief you have because maybe as a Catholic you go, okay, how is it that the little wafer you eat at Mass is the body of Christ?
Literally the body of Christ, not a symbol for the body of Christ.
Now the Catholics do have a philosophic answer for this, which we won't go into here. Needless to say, doesn't hold a whole lot of weight in most philosophical circles because it's based on Aristotle. So 2,400 years ago, if your justification comes from 2,400 years ago, that's reaching. As cool as he is, as great a philosopher as he was, if the best you've got is falling back on a philosophical concept that's 2,400 years old,
well, I think that
you might need to...
It goes without saying that the Catholic...
reevaluate your beliefs.
The Catholic Church is a very antiquated church that has taken a long time to catch up with the times. Up until recently, they disdained condom usage, where as recently they've publicly said in certain situations...
It's better than AIDS.
It's moral. It's better than AIDS.
Which again, we talked about this twice. If your moral center is not outraged at things like this, I don't even know how to reach out past that point. Like, to me, that just shows that there's something flawed with what you are trying to justify here. If you're willing to say that the possibility of preventing a pregnancy is a worse crime, a worse sin, than AIDS. This is a horrible disease that in Africa...
The most infectious...
It's going to kill you.
I mean, it's the modern plague, essentially.
And, again, that just drives me up the wall a little bit there. Because you have to know in the back of your mind, you're wrong. And if you've noticed, when people know they're wrong, that's when they fight their hardest to prove they're right. I've done it in my personal life. When you know that you just screwed up, but you've already committed to like defending it, and then you will defend it to the death, even though you know you're dead wrong.
That's the fight or flight response. You're either going to fight, like once you realize that you're almost caught, you're either fighting the response or you try to deflect and run away.
Yeah.
And that's another weird brain process because it's almost immediate. it's almost like you have no control over it. Your brain's already made that decision, and you just like, bleh, you just spit out words.
You see yourself word vomiting.
Yeah.
Was it logorrhea?
Yeah.
Yes. That's your word of the day, folks.
Logorrhea.
Well, what's happening in social media, Billy?
Well, recently on Reddit, we spoke on it at the beginning, but recently on Reddit, in our ongoing segment on social media, a lot of discussions when the election concluded, a lot of discussions about before the election, it was, God's will was for Romney to win, but by Obama winning the election, he was defeating God's will.
Which to me says your God is impotent, or he's a big practical joker. One of the two.
I just don't understand how simultaneously God could be all-knowing and all-powerful, but then not have control over people that he created.
Don't go into the can God create a rock so large he can't lift it paradox. That's just bad news. Bad news bears right there.
But it's pretty interesting. And like we hashed on earlier, it's, a majority of this country, by a 3% margin, voted for Obama. We don't think if there was a God that he would have anything to do with the election. This is literally, about people. And I think it's because both Obama and Romney are religious people. Obama claims he's a Christian. Romney says he's a Mormon.
He's not. He's a secret atheist. I'm calling that.
As
His
much
memoirs 10 years from now. I was a secret atheist president.
If nothing else, he's a secular president, which one of my favorite quotes from him, he was talking about the topic of abortion. And he
sure it was him and not Biden?
No, it was him.
Okay. Because Biden had the great thing about how he wasn't going to put his beliefs on other people.
No, Obama said the same thing. Just he worded it differently.
Good guy, Obama.
Essentially, they were saying that even if his religion is against abortion or against gay marriage or any of these topics that come up frequently in politics, he couldn't, with good faith in humanity, be against it unless he could come up with a secular reason.
Yeah,
to not believe in it.
I do remember that now. Yeah, basically, if he couldn't justify it on non-religious grounds, he had no reason to justify governmental policy.
Because Obama has a great view that we are a secular nation, freedom from religion, freedom of religion, which is included under the same thing, free speech. We're not a theocracy. It doesn't, we may have touched on it before, but when JFK was elected, he was our first Catholic president, and they made a huge deal over that. But
back when apparently you could question,
and we think it'll be a while before an actual out of the closet atheist will ever be elected.
Well,
but
I think there's one in the House or something like that, or maybe two now. There's
but there are atheist leaders all over the world. The Prime Minister of Australia is an atheist, an unmarried atheist, and so we think it will happen at some point. We don't know if it's in our lifetimes, but
well, I mean,
we
look
think,
at our generation. Our generation is up and coming secular.
Yeah,
far more. I mean, we're in the 30% now.
And I think for the
non-religious or unaffiliated.
Yeah, for the first time in history, at least in recorded history, in the U.S.'s history, Protestants make up less than 50% of the U.S. They're like 48% now, Protestant Christians.
Yeah. Which, are they still protesting anything, by the way? Hasn't that been settled? Like, haven't the truces been drawn there and all that? Are they still fighting the cat? Like it's a sneak attack 400 years later? Just kidding. We're still.
Yeah, I guess if they steal enough people, if they convert enough, are they the ones knocking on doors? I can't remember.
It's a war. Yeah. Well, yeah. Catholics don't do that. Catholics go to poor countries.
Yeah.
And then
donate money, and
Protestants go to slightly poorer countries.
There have been some interesting debates.
Mormons go to your house.
If you haven't ever seen any big atheist debates, I'd recommend looking for Christopher Hitchens and Stephen Fry. They're both on the atheist side of the coin, but they do a huge debate in Intelligence Squared where they're speaking with the British. I forget what her position is. She's a part of the British Parliament. She was a member of Parliament. She's a member of Parliament, like basically
she's a horrible woman.
A figurehead for the Catholic Church. And and then another figurehead from an African nation.
Cardinal or a bishop.
Yeah. But it's an interesting, so I'd recommend looking that up. The topic of the debate was, is the Catholic Church a force for good? They weren't even technically debating like the existence of God, but they were talking about the Catholic Church and
just the
individual.
church as an organization in the world.
And we don't deny that the Catholic Church has donated tons of money to nations across the world, but I don't necessarily say with complete certainty that they've spent all of their money wisely. If you look at some of their extremely large churches, and
they're not spending a lot of it wisely now.
Yeah,
lawsuits I don't think help the poor all that much. They help lawyers. I don't think the lawyers need a whole lot of help right now. Actually, that's not fair. From what I understand, it is a terrible market to be a lawyer.
Yeah, we actually have a friend that's a lawyer, and he gets decent work, but from what I understand, there it's a kind of a crowded marketplace.
Yeah,
I think that was another swing thing where so many people went into school to become lawyers.
No,
you graduate out and it's like everyone has a job.
Well, it's a good thing all those Catholic scandals broke. They got jobs for days.
Yeah.
Anything good on Twitter? Yeah, have any fun battles? Fight it out with Shariist.
Almost everything was related.
Buddhist. I don't know. Pick something.
Almost everything was related specifically to the election, but I will mention at Grand OP, that's GRAND, O is in orange, P is in Paul.
Like Grand Old Party?
Yeah.
Okay.
On Twitter, basically made a comment saying how atheists have no standing and have no idea about politics or what this country is about. And so I just responded, and I'm like, first of all, you obviously don't know anything about atheists because I grew up as a Christian. I have the same, essential site of values and everything as most other Christians in this nation.
Yep. You mean you're not just a godless, terrible heathen?
I'm not a godless evildoer.
Are you an atheist ally, Billy?
I'm an atheist ally. I took the same history classes that everyone else took.
Did you pass American politics or history?
I passed all of my history classes with
Did you,
Beezer.
Billy?
Yeah.
Or did you just cast a satanic spell on the teacher?
But basically, his or her response was, America is a nation with a predominant population that have faith in God. Those that consider that wrong don't get the U.S.
I think we fundamentally get the U.S., which is why I'm arguing for the fact that you want a secular government, because that is the only thing that will guarantee your protection to practice freely. Because
let's say, for example, you're a Catholic and you're a fundamentalist Catholic.
Do I get a hat?
You get a whatever hat you
a mitre.
You can wear this this green beast here on your head. You don't believe in contraception, in condoms.
Am I a Catholic now?
If we had a I'm going to say Scientologist because I don't know how they stand on condoms, but let's say we had a Scientologist dictator that forced sex.
Pause. I'm going to Google Scientology and condoms. Continue.
That forced all acts of sex to involve a condom. Obviously, anyone that is religious or a part of a religion that doesn't believe in contraception or the use of contraception because it interferes with the life process, they'd be pretty pissed off. And I think that's the point of being a secular nation. If you don't believe the same as the person that's the head of a theocracy, then you're going to have a bad time.
This is very true. You can't always guarantee your guy's going to be in charge, that your belief system is going to be the dominant one. I mean, go back to the 1600s when you did have the Protestant Reformation. And in Germany, depending on what your prince in your small 30 square mile territory believed, that was the official law of the land. And God help you if you were caught with, a Protestant translation of the Bible in a Catholic principality, or vice versa. I mean,
or being in one of these Muslim nations, if they follow Sharia law.
Yeah, I mean, if you're an apostate, then
if
will be
if you
killed
actively
in some of
say
these
you
countries.
do not believe in God, then they can kill you under Sharia law. Now it's not common in all Islamic countries. It's not, but it's pretty scary either way.
I don't know of any death penalty that atheists call for. Just that we all believe that. I don't believe denied Darwin. Put him to the torch. We simply don't have that because again, we don't have a positive creed that we're putting out there. We're simply saying this one little thing we don't believe in. I mean, little in the sense of it's one item or one class of items out of all of reality.
Yeah.
We deny this.
I'd argue, and I can't speak for all atheists or all theists, but I would argue that some of us probably value life when talking about the death penalty. Some of us value life more because we believe this is our only life. We don't believe there's an afterlife. So
I'm coming back as a turtle.
If someone...
I don't know about you.
Let's say if someone commits murder, I don't think that they should necessarily get the death penalty. Depending on
I disagree with him on that. I believe that there are crimes for which the death penalty is the only option.
And I think there are, but I would say that...
now, you got to do really bad stuff. Like stealing a candy bar.
There has to be strict requirements when we talk about the death penalty.
God help you if you steal a Kit Kat, though.
I just watched a documentary. There's a Japanese guy that actually... it was the late 80s, I think. He got away with killing and then eating a woman. He basically got it. He spent a little bit of time in a psychiatric ward, and basically unadmitted himself as being healthy after he got deported.
I've decided I'm done being a crazy cannibal.
To another country, and there's a documentary. They actually interview him. He's still alive, and he's been completely free for years. I believe that if you murder people and eat their flesh, I think you might be a zombie. I think that you might be a zombie, and the death penalty, as we know from zombie movies, is
boom headshot.
Boom headshot. So it's instant, but it's also warranted in that situation.
It's true. If you eat my friend, I'm likely to want to shoot you in the face.
Let's say in the heat of a moment in self-defense, if I kill someone, I don't think I should be murdered, or I don't think I should face the death penalty. But again, these are.
We shouldn't cover the death penalty in a minute and a half. You're saying we should probably devote more time to that at some point. Shouldn't just just gloss over all that.
Like most of these topics, we'll probably revisit them at some point.
It's true, but again, I think one thing as we've been doing these podcasts, we found it in many ways remarkably hard to find concrete topics to talk about because being an atheist doesn't mean almost anything. So it's not like simply because you say this suddenly we subscribe to this giant cohesive set of ethical codes and fundamental beliefs and metaphysics that you and I necessarily share. And so I hope as things go forward, our topics will branch out more and more and more. We'll talk more about kind of topics connected to maybe our atheism. We'll touch on morality, but there is no atheistic morality. It's
humanistic morality.
There is no atheist metaphysics. There's nothing that is necessarily attached to this lack of belief in gods.
Yeah, and then maybe we'll talk about certain contradictions in certain holy books, maybe reasons or arguments specifically for why the non-existent of a god makes the most sense.
We'd love to do a Q&A, and since there are about 12 of you right now, that's probably not feasible. But if you have anything you would like to hear talked about, please send us emails.
Leave comments on the site.
Tweet us.
We're at 37G TV on Twitter.
Yep.
Our YouTube channel. Our website is 37g.tv. We've got
comments,
basically feedback.
Contact us.
Welcome in all those places.
Google Plus. Don't forget that. Yeah, we're out there. Find us. We would love to hear what you want to hear us talk about, because that means someone's actually listening, and we're not just talking to ourselves.
As much fun as that is.
It's true. I do it a lot. I think I'm a fascinating fellow.
Until next time.
Cheers. Which was truly my shining moment. You suck. I'm happy you suck.
Today we discuss...
Hey, Mary, I'm gonna give you one chance to knock the shot glass off my head.
Shit. No, oh, man.
Anyone? Bond reference?
Yes, I know. So what you're saying right now is that I should shoot you in the stomach?
That was a pretty brilliant move, I'm not gonna lie. I thought he was gonna be a badass and like outshoot Bond and then just to shoot her. Just to shoot her.
Just shoot her, be like,
Right in the gut. She was smoking too. What a waste.
what a waste, man. Those fingernails are pretty bad there.
Yeah, no, they were like, they were creepy like pimp nails or something.